This is KCAA.
Welcome back to the morning show. I'm Aaron Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And up next, we have our guest with us already. This is Will Seals from Reach Out, talking to us today about synthetic drugs. Welcome, Will. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you this morning?
Doing fantastic. So, what are synthetic drugs? Is that ecstasy? Is that what is that?
It's a complicated but simple question. So actually, ecstasy is a synthetic drug. So synthetic drugs are chemicals that mimic other drugs. So we're talking LSD, marijuana, cocaine, and heroin. So
they mimic the natural, like the opiates and the marijuana, that
exactly.
Okay. And so, why is that? I mean, I know those drugs have been around for a long time. So, well, I guess ecstasy's been around for, 30 years, and LSD, of course, has been around since the 50s. Is this a big problem now, and what new synthetic drugs are there?
So if you can think of any drug that would be from the 70s, LSD, they have LSD, heroin, cocaine, they have a synthetic version. In terms, if you're looking at the way normal drugs work, and how they're sold, they're always looking to become more pure, correct? So you have people who are always trying to make them better. With synthetics, it's the complete opposite. You're trying to take what you originally have, and to get around law enforcement, you're going to break it down. You're going to change the chemical composition. And when it comes to synthetics, what they're finding is that because we're all a little bit different, right? So when we're talking about synthetics, what happens is you have a chemical that's entering the body that the body's not supposed to have, and is fitting somewhat into brain receptors. So everybody gets a different experience.
Oh. So somebody can have a really good experience, somebody can have a really bad experience.
Yes. So you could have 3 people wind up taking the same drug, same synthetic, and then one person's perfectly fine, gets what they're supposed to get. One person starts hallucinating, and one person, which has been the case for a few, goes into a coma.
Oh, gosh. All right, so let's talk about some synthetic marijuana. What are some of the brands out there of that?
Ooh, that is a great question. So synthetic marijuana, also known as Spice or K2, those are actually 2 brand names. K2 and Spice are 2 brand names. So there isn't any specific brand name because there's just so many. You have Scooby Snacks, which would be another, but the list can go on and on. Because as one gets placed on a ban list, they just change the name and keep it pushing.
So they take the active ingredient, which is the THC, and they've just put it into some new format? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what I'm understanding?
So the way this works is, if you're talking about synthetic marijuana, in marijuana the active ingredient is THC. Well, first in marijuana the active ingredient is THC. In synthetic marijuana, it's a chemical. It's one of a number of chemicals. So one of them could be JWH, which is John W. Huffman 175. So it's a chemical that mimics THC.
So it's similar, but it's not THC.
Exactly.
So where do you get this stuff?
It's made overseas. So basically what we're talking about when we're talking about synthetics is research chemicals. These are chemicals that are being used for cancer research or medical research they're taking out specific parts of that. So it'd be like somebody taking acetaminophen and selling large batches of acetaminophen. So people are making it overseas and then selling it online to people in the States or around the world.
So you can get it online. Can you get it in stores? I mean, because, we're interested in this. Of course, Tobin here is a middle school teacher, and we were just talking before the second segment about, he's starting to see pot appear on his school campus in all kinds of different forms. But pot we're used to. Pot we can, an employer can test for. We're kind of used to the signs of what people look like when they've been on pot. We know what it smells like.
We know what it looks like.
And so what I'm gathering from what you're saying is that some of these others, the Spice and the K2 and some of these others, you can't. It's different.
There's no consistency, and that's what makes it kind of dangerous. They don't look alike. Whatever plants they use to put the chemicals on can be completely different, and you can get it in stores. For a long time in the Inland Empire, you could find it at smoke shops, at 1-2s and gas stations, and even now people are just selling it out of their garages because it's something that people have found that they can make at home.
Oh, great. Well, talk about bath salts. Bath salts came to the forefront back when, it was last year when that guy cannibalized somebody on an overpass or something, and everybody said he was on bath salts. What is bath salts?
So bath salts is a cocaine or heroin or ecstasy mimicker. So it's supposed to mimic those things. It's a powdery substance that people would take just like they would take cocaine, heroin, or meth, smoke, inject. So it's like that. But it gives you the same effects, the issue being that it's very unstable. So while you're going for that cocaine high, you may end up completely having irrational mood swings or go into a psychosis.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. Now, from an employer standpoint, do these come up on regular drug tests?
That is one of the dangers of these drugs. In order for these to come up on a drug test, you have to specifically test for the chemical. So with them being a derivative of one chemical, so if I have chemical AB and I change that chemical to AC and you're only testing for AB, it won't come up.
Oh. So somebody could be high on bath salts or high on spice or high on another synthetic, and it won't come up on a drug test, but he could drive a forklift into somebody or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And they would be mimicking the effects of like, oh, I thought that person was on PCP. So when they would go into the test and like, this is just surefire PCP sign, they wouldn't come up for having PCP in their system.
So how are they going to test for stuff like this now? They just do generalized tests and they just keep looking until they find something that they think fits the profile, or
that is the hardest part about these drugs. As law enforcement catches up to what chemicals are out there, they have to start going down a list of derivatives, and the list can go on forever. There's a list online of 250 chemicals, and it can be any one of those or a derivative thereof.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so right now the money is in trying to figure out how can we test for these, because if you know the chemical, that's fine. But because me as a supplier, I'm getting it out of state, and I'm making it at home, you may not know what chemicals I'm using.
from a public policy perspective, I'm thinking that lawmakers are going to have a heck of a time dealing with, how to handle this. I mean, I think if you can't identify specifically what the drug is because they're constantly changing like that you may have to then just start describing what the outcome or the behavior is and saying this, if you take something that makes you behave this way or act this way, whatever the substance is, then that's illegal.
And that is exactly right, and that's what they're starting to do, as well as they're looking at the packaging, because it all kind of comes in the same packaging.
Okay.
So if we're talking about spice or bath salt, spice is sold as incense or potpourri, bath salt is sold as window cleaner, party pills, iPod cleaner, so different things like that. And so they're starting to come after those names.
Oh my gosh.
Those kind of things. So if you go into a smoke shop and you're like, hey, potpourri, but it comes in a little foil package with Scooby-Doo on it, like, that's not potpourri.
Now, because it's all of this is just it sounds like there's just no rhyme or reason to it. It's unstable. What are some of the side effects of using synthetic drugs?
So the danger is that you can have a number of side effects, and because they're all new, or they just hit the scene maybe 10 years ago, we're still finding out what the effects are. The long-term effects have never been actually studied. So give it about 5 years, 5 to 10 more years, and we'll find out what they are.
So, because I'm seeing a list that paranoia, aggression, hallucinations, seizures, shrinking blood vessels, heart muscle weakening. Please talk about all of that.
So, because the chemicals act in your body in a chemical ways, and they fill some of those receptors, if they fit some of them and not others, it clearly depends on who you are as a person and how your body works chemically. So for me, if I were to take bath salts, never have, thankfully, it may hit the receptor that says, hey, your heart needs to speed up. So my heart will start speeding up. And then they'll also fit the one that says, hey, your heart kind of needs to slow down. So then my heart will start slowing down. So my heart muscle starts going kind of wonky. Or, hey, it's kind of cold, shrink those blood vessels. So then that'll start happening because it's just kind of going willy-nilly throughout your body and in your brain.
Well, that kind of stuff could cause congestive heart failure, to be honest with you.
And it does happen. If you go online and you go to SAFE, Synthetic Awareness for Emily, she had a number of seizures, and the hospital had to put her into a coma because they couldn't stop the seizures.
Oh my goodness,
that's terrible.
Yeah. This is terrible. Now, talk about do we know the level of uses in the Inland Empire?
We do not know the level of uses of the Inland Empire at this time. The Inland Empire has done a great job of putting policies in place to kind of limit how these get out to youth. and throughout the community. So that is, the county has put out a synthetic drug ordinance. The cities like Montana or Upland have bath ordinances and things like that. And law enforcement is doing a great part to try to look into smoke shops. And smoke shops, gas stations, and houses. So up in the desert, you had a $50,000 bust of 3 smoke shops that were selling synthetic drugs. So law enforcement is trying their best to try and stop these before they get out to the public.
What can parents do, and what can employers do?
Educate yourself. As a parent, I think one of the biggest things is to educate yourself and really let your children know what the dangers are. With these drugs, the reason why people are taking them is because they're being sold as legal. Because if I can change my chemical composition, I now have a new drug that doesn't fall under the illegal list. So it's safe, it's legal. Nothing bad will happen to you. So as a parent, educating your kids on these are the dangers of these synthetic drugs, right? Knowing what your kids are doing, where they're going. As an employer, again, you have to educate yourself on what the drugs are, what are the side effects, what are the symptoms.
Yeah, if your kid comes home with potpourri, be a little skeptical. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, if your kid comes home with leafy potpourri, it kind of looks like Italian seasoning. You need to have a discussion with your child.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, so tell us a little bit about your background and how you started doing this work.
I work at Reach Out. I am a policy specialist. I came to Reach Out 4 years ago, and for those 4 years, my job has been to study underage youth access to drugs and alcohol, youth abuse and access to drugs and alcohol.
Now, would you say that drug use is going up, or do you think it's going down, or is it about the same?
I would say that it is going up at this time. With legalization of marijuana coming in, the perception of harm among youth is going down, and use is going up.
And I will say anecdotally, as a public school teacher, that's what we're seeing on our campuses. I shared earlier that we're seeing more marijuana-related activity on our campus with kids caught with marijuana, and not just the traditional little baggie of something they're going to smoke, but in fact we've seen it cooked into brownies and cookies and other things that we never used to see.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting a little more they're getting fancier with their marijuana use.
Well, Will, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really informative. I think that people need to investigate synthetic drug use. And can you give out that website where people can learn more?
Yes. So there are a couple places you can learn more. You can go to NIDA.gov, NIDA.gov, and if you say it's a whole government website that deals with drugs. And if you have kids or you're a teacher and you want to talk about these things, there is NIDAteen.gov.
And it's, and what is it?
NIDA.
Okay.
And that is a great resource to go to.
NIDA, is that the National Institute of Drug Abuse? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
It's drugabuse.gov. I just found it. NIDA.NHS, I think, national, or no, it's go to drugabuse.gov. There you can find it. We will post that on our social networks. It'll tell you all about drug abuse in the United States. It's the National Institute on Drug Abuse. So thank you so much for joining us today. We've been talking to Will Seals from Reach Out about synthetic drug use here in the Inland Empire and elsewhere, and I think it's something that we all need to pay attention to. Have a great day, Will.
Have a great day.
So thank you so much, and we will be right back. We're going to take a break. I'm Aaron Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And this is The Morning Show on KCAA AM 1050.